We're going to begin on page 188 with the words of Hine Matov. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. The words of Matovu on page 192 come from this week's Torah portion, so it feels totally appropriate that we should actually also sing. And it's became traditional to actually, whenever you enter a synagogue in the morning for prayer, that you would begin with these words: Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. How good are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. V'ani berov hastecha avo Eshtachaveh el hechokochecha begirotecha. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. On page 194. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah u'bravo nekavim nekavim chalulim chalulim. Galui v'yadua lifnei kisei kevodecha she'im yipatech echad mehem o yisatem echad mehem I ifshar l'hitkayem v'la'amod lefanecha Baruch atah Adonai rofei chol basar u'ma'afli la'asot. We continue with the words of Nasim B'chol Yom on page 198. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sech b'bina l'havchin bein yom uvein layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechim etzadei gaber. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten le'ayef kohav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hama'avir shenei me'enai u'pnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Oter Yisrael batifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with notes, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. On page 206, we read together. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We're going to take a moment to, since we said the blessing for the study of Torah, just to take a moment to actually do a little self-study. And on page 211, there are a variety of texts. And just to take a moment, you can read one of them or all of them. Just take a moment for your own study. On page 225, a poem. What makes a fire burn is space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight, can douse the flames almost as surely as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention to the spaces in between as much as to the wood. When we are able to build open spaces in the same way we have learned to pile on the logs, then we can come to see how it is fuel and the absence of fuel together that make the fire possible. We only need to lay a log lightly from time to time, and a fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way. Rise and open the door that is shut. Yitkadal va'yitkadash shemeha ba, ve'alma divrachute ve'amlich malchute, b'chayechon u'vyomechon, u'chayedecho beit Yisrael, b'hagava, u'bismahan kahariv, v'imeru, amen. Yehi shmera b'mevorach, le'olam olam me'havaya, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemen kudesha brichu, le'la min kol bechata v'shirata, Tushbehata v'nechemata da'amira meyahama V'meru, Amen. We rise for the words of Baruch Hu on page 226. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai. Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. Page 228. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Yotzer or uvarei choshech, osei shalom uvarei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, utuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha. Ve'al me'orei or sha'asita yifa'arucha sela. Or chadash al Zion ta'ir. V'nizkechu lanu meheira le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai. Yotzer hamerot. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. And light blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote, we reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham B'shivtecha b'beitecha, uv'lechtecha b'derech, uv'shofbecha uv'kumecha, uv'shartam le'ohot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'einecha, uv'tavtam amezuzot beitecha, uv'isharecha, Leman tizkeruhu v'asitehem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem Ahani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem. On the bottom of page 239 together. The eternal truth that is that you alone are our God and there is none else. May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and let their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore. You shall not hate your brother and your sister in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God. We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God on Most High. Blessed is God and deserving. Mi chamocha b'nelim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot, Osef ele, Shira chadasha shimchu geulim, Leshimcha al safahat hayam yachad kulam hodu v'imlichu v'amru Adonai yimloch leolam vahed Adonai yimloch leolam vahed Adonai yimloch leolam vaed. Su Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, uvdei k'nemecha Yehuda v'Yisrael, go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo kedosh Yisrael, baruch atah Adonai, ga'al Yisrael. We turn now to the words of the Amidah on page 242. And, the authors of our prayer book have compiled prayers that are an invitation for us, as I sometimes like to say, to get lost. So I want to invite you to get lost. It's the only time that I would actually say that publicly like that. But I want to invite you to get lost. And what I mean by that is that we're going to begin with the words of Adonai Sabbatai Tutach, and then we're going to continue in silence. And it's possible that you want to read the Avot, the Imahot, and go on through with the Hebrew on the right-hand side of the page. It's possible that you may choose that you want to do an alternative reading. It's possible the reading's on the left-hand side of the page. It's possible that you want to focus on one prayer, or even one word, or even just the prayers of your own heart. So invite yourself to get lost in the words of the Amidah. We'll begin on page 242 and invite you to be seated when you feel like your prayers have been finished or when it's comfortable for you. Adonai sifai tifta ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Say shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yahase shalom, Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yahase shalom, Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. We come now to Seder Kriyat Torah Shabbat, the service for the reading of the Torah on the Sabbath. I'm going to invite my colleague, Rabbi Alexi Erdheim, to come forward to hold the Torah as we remove the Torah from the ark. Invite the congregation to please rise. And if you want a page number, we're on page 364. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, udavar Adonai Yerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlu Adonai iti, V'nromem Shemo yachtav, Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Ha'olam Ha'olam Omen, Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Ha'olam Ha'olam Omen. Al HaTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim, Al HaTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Maybe seated. Are you going to do your Torah teaching first, or you want to do Shan first? Okay, great. So for the Aliyah today, I want to invite all of you. So we can do, it's hard to pick. All right, so here's the thing. Bilam in our Torah portion, right, he's on the donkey, and we're not going to take what we did in Torah study and bring that into here, but he's riding the donkey, and he cannot apparently see like what's right in front of him, right? He misses the thing that's right in front of him. And I was thinking about that on the way here this morning, about how so often as I'm even driving in my car, I am very often just missing the things that are sort of happening all around us, right? And so I want to invite you to begin, and just before you even get to the Torah portion, to sort of think for 1 second, if you've noticed that like there's something that you know that you have missed seeing right in front of you, that perhaps you would have, if you'd slowed down a little, if you decided to actually pay attention to what's going on, if you had just sort of not gotten to the rhythm of trying to maybe just your daily activities, or try to accomplish a task, right? If you'd slowed down just enough, that maybe you would have seen or heard, right, something powerful or meaningful, right? And perhaps we've all been in that moment where we just sort of have acted out. And if you've ever found yourself in a moment where you are saying, like, I would love to bring greater intentionality, greater mindfulness to my daily my daily living, then I want to invite you up for the Aliyah this morning. So you can choose. That is a truth for me, right? Sometimes that is sort of, I will happily have the Aliyah. But if you would like to join me in wanting to have more mindfulness and intention in your life, then I invite you to also come up for the Aliyah. All right.
Terry. It's not disappeared.
Batere?
Yeah.
There's Balak right there. I'm gonna go this way. There we go. Okay.
Wrong column.
Wrong column. All right. If you just slow down enough, right? Maybe you can see the thing. No, I'm kidding. All right. So, all right, on the count of three. Chad, Shaim, Shalosh. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Matere ha'etzon et malach Adonai v'tirbat tachat bilam v'yichar af bilam v'yach et ha'etzon b'makel v'yiftach Adonai et pi ha'etzon v'tomer lebilam me'asiti lecha ki hikitani ze shalosh regalim v'yomer bilam leton ki hitalta bi Lu veyesh cherev beyadi ki ata haragtihi vatomer ha'eton el bilam halo anochi otanecha asher achta elai me'odecha ad hayom hazeh hahasken hiskanti la'asot lecha ko Vayomer lo.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Well, thank you for coming up here. By almost being forced to, Yeshikach for honoring Shabbat and honoring Torah with the Aliyah today, and Yeshikach on your reading. I'm gonna sit down so you can teach. All right.
Well, okay. Does anyone here listen to a podcast called Shortwave? Anyone familiar? Okay, well, I'm going to change everyone's life. It's a wonderful podcast on NPR called Shortwave, and it's a daily science podcast. And so they focus on lots of different areas of science. One of their specific interests is including a more diverse group of people in science, right? But there are a series of episodes in which they focus specifically on animals. And I've learned a lot from these podcasts, and it's really increased my admiration for animals. And has really taught me that animals often are just, better than us. And they always tend to pick animals that we humans have given a bad rap, right? Like just animals that we have smeared their name like we cannot believe, right? Spiders and bats and rats, things like that. But I want to just share a little bit of like what they would teach, right? So for spiders, I have learned that spiders live in every ecosystem, in every geography, from the highest point, literally Mount Everest, all the way down to the lowest point on Earth. Everywhere you go, there are spiders. I'm sorry if someone is arachnophobic. I did not mean to trigger anyone in that way. There are spiders who live part-time underwater, and they create their own air dome so that they can breathe underwater, and they create a little pocket of air in their lungs so that they can walk underwater. Incredible. There are spiders who can fly, really like balloon, kind of like a kite. They like shoot their web and they can float through the air, but they can go really, really far because they can sense Earth's magnetic field and use it to help propel them so that they can travel thousands of kilometers. And there are some spiders who actually take bunches of seaweed and kelp, and they use it as kind of like a raft or a boat. And they hop on and they sail the seas, right? They travel across the world. And the reason why I love these episodes, right? These little tidbits that delve into the world of these creatures that we're surrounded by, but don't always notice, right? The wonders that they behold, is because I feel like as humans, we like to pull the B'Tselem Elohim card a lot, right? We like to be like, we are humans, we were created in the image of God, and we are wonderful. And it's humbling to learn about all the ways that we are just not as good as some of God's creatures. So in our Torah portion this week, we see this dynamic between humans and animals really play out. So the sorcerer Balaam is sent out by the Moabite king Balak to curse the Israelites, but his donkey, his trusted donkey, keeps refusing to move forward. He keeps stopping his journey and opening his eyes to see the truth in front of him, because the donkey can see the messenger of God in the road, and he refuses to carry Balaam towards the Israelite encampment. Infuriated, Balaam hits the donkey 3 times. And the donkey, to Balaam's surprise, opens her mouth and says, "What have I done to you that you've beaten me these 3 times? You know me, I'm your donkey. I take you everywhere all the time. Wouldn't you think that like if I'm doing this, it's because something is wrong, right? I'm your trusty steed. I wouldn't steer you in the wrong direction." So in many ways, it's the donkey that is the hero of this story. The rabbis in Midrash Bamidbar Rabbah ask a great question that arises from this scene. Why is it that animals don't use speech? It's a great question. And the answer that they finally land on is that had they been able to speak, it would have been impossible to put them to the service of people or to stand one's ground against them. For here was this donkey, the most stupid of all beasts, and there was the wisest of wise. Yet as soon as she opened her mouth, he could not stand his ground against her. The Holy One has consideration for the embarrassment of people, and knowing their needs, shut the mouth of beasts. So basically what the rabbis are saying is that if animals could talk, we would not stand a chance. It's a really important lesson in humility. Sometimes we like to think that we are the center of the universe, that we're the smartest, most complex beings, that we have complete control of the world around us. And it's a value that appears throughout Jewish tradition, that we must respect our animals, right? This isn't the first time that it emerges. We're commanded that on Shabbat, our animals must rest as we do. We're commanded that we must feed our animals before we feed ourselves. And we're even taught that the reason why humanity was created last when God was creating the world was not because God was saving the best for last, but rather so that humankind could not say, we are even better. We're not as good as the mosquito, which was created before us. So I hope that we take away from Parshat Balak this time that we don't always have the answers. But if we're humble, if we listen carefully and open our eyes, we might be able to learn a lot from the world around us, to see and understand what has been in front of us the whole time. Shabbat Shalom.
I have to say that I am really glad my dog can't speak. I want to invite, would you all want to address the Torah? Would you, and see, do you know how to lift the Torah? Invite everyone to please rise. Have you ever done before?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, there's always a first time.
Don't drop.
Whatever you do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
don't
it's
drop.
7 years ago.
So yeah, don't So, all right, so we're gonna 3. All right. Use that right there. Okay. And then with your knees. Ready? Always first. Exactly. Now lift it up high. Good. Turn around. Ki lakachto natati lachem torati al ta'azohu et ha'hihi lamachazikim ba v'tomhecha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol nativotecha Shalom Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Stay standing. We're going to stay standing with the words of Aleinu L'Shabeach. You can find them. On page 586. Aleinu L'Shabeach Ladon HaKol Latei Tefillah Leotzeh Bereshit Shelo Asanu K'goi Ha'aratzot Velo Samanu K'mishpachot Ha'adama Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem Velo Horaleinu K'chol Ha'amonam Va'anachnu Korim Umishtacharim Umodim Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMalchim HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'nehemar B'haya Adonai L'melech b'chol haaretz V'yom hahu Yeh Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad. May be seated. This time we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and those who died at the season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts as our own. Our congregation is in a period of Shloshim, the first 30 days after the deaths of Bruce Burpee, David Foster, Sam Foster, Varda Kaufman, Steve Kaufman, and Ellen Kelso. We mark with sympathy and sadness the yardsites, the anniversaries of the deaths of H. Leslie Atlas Jr., John Barron, Ann M. Brandt, Steve Chazen, Philip Chernoff, Bernard Cohen, John D. Cox, Charlotte Ellis, Jack Fields, Richie Firestein, Harry Furstensell, Rudolph Frund, Jan Edward Goodman, Laura Greenwald, Irene Jacobs, Eric Jacobson, Lee Jacobson, Art E. Kaplan, Lester Karp, Sheila Josephsberg Kasten, Irving Kaufman, Fanny Kessler, Sarah Klein, Charles M. Korach, Dorothy Kostel, Arthur Lewis, Robert Lids, Celeste Renee Lindner, Ben Lipson, Eli Luskin, Robert S. Mages, Aaron Malinsky, Bernard Malinsky, Ruth Mannheimer, Eric Marks, Luella Morris, Gertrude Neiman, Natalie Osher, Evelyn K. Powers, Tom Robinson, Lillian Rosenthal, Sylvia Singer Roth, Al Roveman, Frances Rose Russ, Ida Salet, Adele Samuelson, Max Schuler, Joel Spiegel, Philip Siegel, William Sims, Howard Simon, Leon W. Simon Jr., Edmund Cinda, Miriam Singer, Tilly Strandel, Julius Strauss, Benjamin Wallens, Ruth Weisner, Alicia P. Winters, and Sarah Wolfert. Is anyone here remembering someone today? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. We remember as well all who died in the Shoah and the Holocaust, our American servicemen and servicemen and servicewomen and the first responders who've died for our freedoms and protection, and also those who died defending the state of Israel. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing as we rise as one congregational family to support each other with the words of Kaddish Tom on page 598. Yitgadal vayitkadash shemei rabbah, Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'byomechon u'b'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agala u'b'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamei olamaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithalev v'yithalal shemei kudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Uya ase shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone. And Shabbat shalom to everyone who is at home, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.